I was struggling to pull off my winter boots in our cramped entryway when my husband, Oleg, mumbled something that hit me like a ton of bricks. Dash, I've been thinking, we need to get a divorce, he said, stumbling through the words as he got back from what he called a long business trip. That was the excuse he'd thrown together last Saturday, rushing out the door with a gym bag slung over his shoulder. I was bent over, wrestling with my boots, when he dropped that bombshell. The right boot came off easily, but the left one, its zipper always jams at the worst possible moment, was putting up a fight. I yanked at it, trying to free myself, but it was no use. Oleg glanced at me, pretending not to notice my struggle, kicked off his fancy dark brown leather shoes, and headed into the living room. It was February 28th, a Tuesday. My best friend, Jen, swears Tuesdays are cursed. She says all her bad luck, her phone getting stolen on the subway, fights with her mom, breaking the heel on her new shoes, happens on Tuesdays. It's almost funny when you think about it. But for me, this Tuesday was proving her point. Although, if I'm being honest, the trouble started long before this miserable day. Maybe it was one of those Tuesdays that creep into our lives every 7 days like clockwork. I finally got the stubborn boot off, slipped on my house slippers, and followed Oleg into the living room. He was standing by the window, his back to me, hands in his pockets, shoulders tense. He was nervous. I plopped down on the couch and asked, "So what's next?" "What do you mean, what's next?" Oleg peeled himself away from the window, ran a hand through his hair, and dropped into the armchair across from me. He looked exhausted, like he hadn't slept in days. The business trip must have been a wild one. Still, the dark circles under his red eyes didn't make him any less good-looking. Oleg was always attractive, even back when we were younger, and somehow he's only gotten better with age. He's not super tall, but he's got a great build, dresses sharp, and has a handsome face, big eyes, straight nose, and nicely curved lips. The mustache, though, a mistake. It's thin, patchy, and yellowish. My dad, now that was a guy with a mustache, thick and bristly like a war hero's. When he kissed my cheek as a kid, it tickled so much I'd scrunch up my face, and he'd laugh. That's pretty much my only memory of him. My parents split when I was 3. Dad left for another woman, and, aside from child support payments, he was gone from our lives. Never visited. I bet he was out there tickling some other kid, his son from his new wife, with that mustache. Years later, my mom ran into him on the street and found out I have a half-brother named Vlad, for years younger than me. Oleg and I sat there, staring at each other in silence. Then he asked in a polite, almost formal tone, "Is Liza at daycare?" "Yeah, I just dropped her off," I replied. Liza's our 2-year-old daughter. We enrolled her in daycare last September, and she's still adjusting. Honestly, she seems happiest when she wakes up with a fever or a runny nose because it means she gets to skip daycare. She's been sick on and off since fall, cough, runny nose, sore throat, you name it. Our pediatrician keeps saying, "It's just adaptation, be patient." I try, but every time I notice Liza's forehead is hot or she's swallowing hard in her sleep, my stomach churns. Kids' illnesses could be a whole conversation on their own, but that's not the point right now. After the new year, I started working as a daycare teacher. I've got a degree in education and used to teach history before maternity leave, but I had no plans to go back to the classroom. So, why not work at a daycare? "You're working the afternoon shift today, right?" Oleg said, more a statement than a question. I didn't respond. "Dash, maybe you didn't hear me," he said, taking a deep breath before continuing cautiously. "I want a divorce." "I heard you, Oleg. Let's get to the point." "I've got to stop by social services before work," I said flatly. "Social services?" he echoed, sounding surprised. "So, you're not against it?" "Against it? I'm all for it," I reply, my voice cold. "You might think I'm heartless. My life's falling apart, and I'm talking about running errands? I'm not made of stone. It's just that over the past year, Since Oleg started his affair with his coworker Sophia, I've gone through every stage they write about in psychology books: denial, disbelief, hurt, anger, self-blame, disappointment. There were hysterics, broken dishes, and buckets of tears. Oleg's the kind of guy who'd rather chop a dog's tail off bit by bit than do it all at once. First, he confessed everything, claiming he's an honest and conscientious man. He cried, begged for forgiveness, swore it was over. Just as I started to recover from the shock and forgive him, he dove right back in. This time, it was my fault. I wasn't understanding, supportive, or interesting anymore. I'd become a frumpy mom obsessed with diapers and baby powder. With Sophia, it was all fireworks and passion. With me, a grim, monotonous slog. This cycle repeated maybe 4 times. 1 minute, Oleg was beating his chest, calling himself a monster and swearing I was the love of his life. The next, he was off celebrating with Sophia, setting off emotional fireworks. After a while, you stop reacting so intensely. Self-preservation kicks in. But this was the first time he'd mentioned divorce. Right now, he was in phase 2, riding high on his feelings for Sophia, barely touching down on earth. For some reason, though, he was trying to keep up appearances, informing me about business trips and meetings, talking on the phone with the shower running to mask his conversations, not smelling of cologne. He even tried to fulfill his husbandly duties a couple of times, but I shut that down. He didn't push. You might ask why I didn't file for divorce myself. Go ahead, judge me, but I was holding out hope. I thought he'd come to his senses, that the spark we once had wasn't gone forever. Oleg's always been impulsive. 3 years ago, he took out a huge loan to invest in some shady 3-letter financial scheme. It collapsed, burying his dreams of a new car and a vacation home abroad. To dig ourselves out of debt, we had to sell the 2-bedroom apartment I'd inherited from my mom after she passed. Oleg and I moved into a tiny studio. Dash, I came to grab my things, Oleg said, adding with a dramatic flourish, of course, the apartment's yours and Liza's. I barely held back a scoff. The nerve of this guy. He must have realized how ridiculous he sounded because his eyes turned sharp and his lips pressed into a thin line. He always gets mad when he knows he's wrong. Listen, Dash, maybe you should file for divorce. My conscience won't let me sleep otherwise, I said, half joking. Why do you always have to start something? Oleg snapped, storming over to the closet. He yanked it open, pulled out a big suitcase, and started stuffing his things inside. I'm trying to have a calm conversation, keep things friendly, I said. We do have a daughter, after all. Speaking of which, are you planning to visit her? Of course, Oleg exclaimed, sounding offended. And I'll pay child support. Why are you making me out to be some kind of monster? I doubt we'll stay friends, I said, a little too late. Sorry, but I don't choose people like you as friends. My now ex-husband dragged his suitcase to the stairwell and muttered, All right, Dash, see you. I stayed calm as I closed the door behind him. But once the elevator clanked and carried Oleg out of our lives for good, I leaned against the wall and broke down. The tears didn't last long, probably because I knew no one was coming to comfort me. 40 minutes later, I left the building. The trip to social services was still on my to-do list. I didn't want to see anyone, but of course I ran into my neighbor, Mrs. Lena. I gave her a quick hello and tried to slip by, but she stared at me, her curiosity barely masked by fake sympathy. Hey there, red eyes? Been crying, huh? He left, didn't he? Don't worry, it'll all work out. You're still young, not even 30. Lose some weight, pull yourself together, and, God willing, you'll meet someone new. So what if you got a kid? These days, men don't even raise their own kids. They're raising other people's. Mrs. Lena's a real piece of work. In one breath, she summed me up, a fat, abandoned woman pushing 30 with a kid and no prospects. My mood sank even lower, and I was ready to cry again. Then Jen called. When I told her the news, she said, "What did you expect? It's Tuesday. Don't stress. I'll come over tonight with some brandy." Why did I tell her? I hate brandy. I didn't want to see anyone, not even Jen. I'm used to dealing with my problems alone. I need time to sit with them, get used to them, sleep on them, and look at them closely. That's when I stop being afraid, gather my strength, and figure out what to do next. I don't need drunken talks, tears, or even Jen's genuine sympathy, unlike Mrs. Linus. But I didn't want to hurt my friend's feelings. Lost in thought, I didn't realize I'd reached the road. I needed to cross, but the crosswalk was way down the street, and I didn't feel like walking that far. The roads were a mess, buried in snow the maintenance crews couldn't keep up with. I decided to dart across right there since there weren't many cars. Huge snowbanks lined the road, so I climbed to the top of one, trying to figure out the best way to cross. What happened next is a blur. Later, people told me the snowbank gave way, sliding onto the road. I flailed, trying to stay upright, but it was no use. I let out a garbled yell and slid right under the wheels of a passing car. I came to quickly, sitting on the wet, dirty asphalt next to a sleek blue sedan. A young guy, maybe in his mid-20s, was kneeling in front of me, his face pale and twisted with fear. Something about him seemed vaguely familiar. "Hey, miss, can you hear me? Are you okay?" he asked, his voice cracking as he saw me looking at him. "How did this happen? Oh my God, why? I'm so sorry. I tried to brake and swerve. It shouldn't have hit you hard. Can you move? What does it hurt?" It was like he was talking to a kid. I couldn't help but smile and said, "I think I'm okay." I turned my head, moved my arms. Car sped by, but no one stopped to check on us or offer help. "We need to call the police," a cranky woman's voice called from above. I looked up and saw two older women and a man in a giant fur hat that looked like a bird's nest standing on the snowbank. No, please, no police," I said, panicking. The last thing I needed was to get stuck here. I have to get to social services and then work. It's my fault. I shouldn't have crossed here. I'm fine, really. I'll get up now. I tried to stand, but collapsed back down as a sharp pain shot through my left foot. "What's wrong?" the guy asked, alarmed. "Your foot." "Yeah, it hurts," I said. "Hang on, let me check." He carefully but clumsily felt my leg. The crowd above started murmuring, but I ignored them, too worried about my foot. What if it's broken? If I end up in the hospital, who'll take care of Liza? Damn, this Tuesday, it just keeps piling on. My nose stung, and tears welled up again. "Are you a doctor?" I asked, wincing. "No, I'm a geologist," he said, giving up on examining my foot. "But my best friend's the best surgeon in town. We're in the hospital right now. Don't worry, everything's going to be okay." He scooped me up with surprising ease and put me in his car. I mumbled something about my dirty coat ruining his seats, but he waved it off. "Forget it, that's not important." The car was warm and cozy, with soft music playing and the smell of coffee from a little sachet on the dashboard. The car pulled smoothly into traffic. We rode in silence for a bit before he glanced at me and asked, "How are you doing? Does it hurt a lot?" "It's bearable," I said. God, I'm such an idiot. "You're not an idiot," he said with a smile. "Life's just like that sometimes. We're always rushing somewhere, and things go sideways." He reminded me of someone again, but I couldn't place it. "Yeah, I rushed all right," I said. "By the way, I'm Dasha. What's your name?" "Vladimir. Nice to meet you, though the circumstances could have been better." Something clicked in my head, and before I could think it through, I blurted out, "Vladimir. Not Vladimir Sergeyevich, is it?" "Sergeyevich." He looked at me, confused. "How'd you know that? Have we met?" "No, but I'm a Sergeyevna," I said, feeling silly. "I'm Pimenova now, but before I got married, I was Savchenko. And you're Savchenko too, right?" Long story short, I'd been hit by my own brother's car. Can you believe it? That was over a year ago, and now I can hardly imagine my life without Vlad. It turned out her dad had a heart attack and died the same year as my mom. Vlad's mom, Larissa Petrovna, Dad's second wife, welcomed Liza and me like family. Liza calls her Granny and adores Vlad so much it sometimes makes me jealous. Larissa and Vlad are a lot alike, both kind and genuine, almost childishly open, without a hint of pretense. Vlad hasn't settled down yet. His girlfriends change so fast we can't keep up with their names or faces. But I can't judge him for it. He just hasn't found the one. When he does, I'm certain he'll be the most loyal, devoted husband. Vlad's practically adopted Liza and me, like a modern-day Good Samaritan. He fixed all the leaky faucets and faulty wiring in our apartment, did the renovations Oleg never got around to, and took us to the beach last summer. He loves babysitting Liza, taking her to the puppet theater, the zoo, or a kids' cafe on weekends. From May to September, Liza stays at Larissa's country house, and they're both thrilled to spend time together. Oh, and my foot? Not broken, just sprained. Vlad's best friend, Kostya, a surgeon, fixed it in no time. He's an amazing doctor, attentive and professional. At 34, he's already a department head, a PhD, and working on his doctorate. His patients love him, and I was no exception. I trusted him right away. We started hanging out as friends, then more than friends, and 2 months ago, Kostya proposed. Of course, I said yes. We're getting married in June. Vlad's over the moon that his best friend will now be family. I won't gush about my feelings, but sometimes I worry it's all a dream, that I'll wake up one gray morning next to Oleg. The thought makes me shudder. Knowing there are men like Kostya out there, I could never go back to living with Oleg. Speaking of him, true to form, he gets paid under the table and sends Liza the bare minimum child support, 25% of the legal minimum. He and Sophia broke up, and he's off having his passionate celebrations somewhere else. I couldn't care less where or with whom. What else? That's about it. Oh, except Jen, she's going to be my maid of honor, has completely changed her tune about Tuesdays. Thank you for listening to the story until the end. Subscribe to the channel and share this video with your friends and loved ones. It motivates us to keep working on new stories every day. Don't miss the next amazing story that's about to appear on your screen. We're very grateful to have you with us. See you soon.